But have you seen those studies where people, and these are funny studies, but they're real. And there's
like
people
the doctor's office where they stand
where
up.
like people walk into a doctor's office, everybody's actors except for the person walking in. A bell will go off. Everybody will stand up and sit down. After about 2 or 3 times, the person who's not the actor just follows along.
Yep,
or there'll be like an elevator and everybody's lined up in single file facing the wrong way, and the person naturally gets behind everybody and just does the same thing. So I think that proves what you're saying, that it's extremely powerful. So along those lines, do you think that this minority of crazy voices is popular because of algorithms and clicks, or do you think that there's something more nefarious? In other words, do you think that people are taking advantage of this fear mechanism that we have for being socially ostracized and are using it to keep everybody else silenced so that this appears to be the majority? And if that's the case, then why? Why is
And
that?
also, how much of it do you think is artificially engineered?
So I think this stuff, I mean, if you really want to go deep, it goes back many, many decades. There's been what's called the long march through the institutions. So, you know, if you really want to go to the origins of what, again, like what people now call wokeism or cultural Marxism, or, you know, these sort of, honestly, you know, far left ideas, which have now got a grasp of course, academia, but also in entertainment, some elements of big tech, other institutions. A lot of this has been intentionally planned for many decades, since many decades before I was born. You could go back to the Frankfurt School. So these are not new ideas, but what's happened in the past decade is they've gone more mainstream. And then, so yes, it is intentional, because there are small elements out there who want to upend and overturn many elements of society and kind of flip the hierarchy from what they currently perceive it to be. And then there's a lot of people who would fall kind of into the useful idiot category, where it's not like, oh, they're really deep on all of these theories and they've really read up on Marxism and postmodernism and the origins of gender ideology and queer theory, all of these things. Like, you could name certain people who are the architects of these ideas and they've never even heard of them, but they're still espousing and mirroring the ideas that they got in college or whatever it is. So in this situation, they're sort of acting like useful idiots. So it's not a new, these ideas are not new. They've just penetrated and gone beyond the fringes of academia very much in the past decade, which is why if you talk to most people, regardless of even where they sit politically, a lot of people would say that around somewhere between 2011 and 2013, it's like we entered, there was some kind of break and we entered some new weird reality where, like, you know, prior to 2010, in 2010, some of the conversations that are now being had and have been had over the last few years, these were things that weren't up for debate. These aren't things that people were saying or questioning and so on.
That's when it started getting weird.
That's when it really started getting weird, right? I think that's when it tilted. I'd say 2012.
Yeah.
So that's why I often say that in the past decade, that's when Clown World began.
Mayan calendar was right.
I knew essentially. Yeah.
Now, some moderates would say, so what? Leave them alone. Why is it such a big deal? Why do you think it is so important that we speak up, or do you or do you believe these are dangerous ideas?
Yeah, exactly. It's if the ideas are destructive and dangerous and harmful to people on an individual and a societal level, which I would absolutely argue that these woke ideas are. I don't even like that word woke. There's not really a better term for it that people are going to easily understand that encapsulates all these different ideas, right? So this encapsulates the gender theory, which includes the modern notions of transgenderism. This includes what people would call critical race theory and ways of viewing, you know, race in society, right? Someone who believes this idea will look at a room like this and automatically they're making all sorts of judgments and aspersions based on all of our skin color, right? They already know racism is happening. They're just trying to work out how it's happening, right? Like, no matter what you do,
it right now,
right?
yeah.
If you say that you're not racist, then that's evidence that you are racist,
You can't
right?
win.
Yeah, you can't win if you like. Okay, no matter what you do, like if you're white. Right. If you say if you deny it, then that's evidence of your racism, right? That's your white fragility or whatever nonsense they call it. If I say that I don't typically experience racism, or that like I don't see people that right that they'll say that, oh, I'm, that's my internalized racism, or now you can be a black white supremacist, so maybe I'm white supremacist, right? They have all these goofy ideas.
Remember when Chappelle did that bit with that, and everybody thought that was so funny? Now, like, now everybody's like, no, you can actually,
Then just a couple of weeks ago, they had the article with Kanye, and so talking about what was it, multiracial white supremacy or something, and you're just like, what on earth are these people talking about? All those ideas. Some of the more extreme notions of, modern day third or fourth wave feminism are encapsulated in those ideas. So, it really is just cultural Marxism. It's instead of the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, you're splitting it along typically race, sexuality, and gender. That's why those are the three sort of categories that are always going with that way. But to me, all the above are destructive. That's why it's a problem. Because these are, number one, it's false, right? Number one, the ideas are not, they're just false.
Yes.
Okay. The idea that all white people are racist, that is false, right? This is one of their tenets.
I know.
It's literally a tenet, but I'm like, that is false. The idea that all black people are oppressed, it's complete bollocks, right? My Britishness is slipping out, right? But it's false. It's false. And also it's divisive and damaging, right? If you're regardless of what skin color you are, or whether you're a man or you're a woman or you're straight or you're gay or whatever, if you're walking around either believing that you are just by dint of who you are, you're an oppressor, right? And that you're somehow holding other people down and you need to somehow atone for sins you haven't committed or whatever, like that's not healthy. That's not positive. If you're a black person or you're a woman or you're this or you're that, and you're supposed to walk around all day believing that you're oppressed and people are against you and you're actually kind of a second-class citizen and all of these things, and that it creates animosity between people, right? You don't want to walk around all day hung up on your identity and people's immutable characteristics, all that stuff. It's not accurate and it's not helpful. And I think you can genuinely see the division that it causes. You can see the division when you've got people again. It's weird because these are kind of, I call it neo racism, because actually they're just slightly flipping ideas that people had a century plus.
It's still collectivism. It's all collectivism.
It is. It's still going back to, oh no, like these are the type of people who will tell you that it's racist to be colorblind. Right? That if you say something like, oh, you know what? I don't really see race. Like, I don't judge people that way or whatever. They're like, oh, no, that's a problem. And it's like, what are you? Isn't this what the KKK were pushing? Yeah. Right? That you have to split people into, the whites and the non-whites and treat people differently based on this. And you've got people who are pushing for segregated graduations and having different dorm rooms for different ethnicities and so on. And I'm just like, that's psychotic, man.
Strange we moved away from just basing it off of your character.
Yeah, it's going full circle. Yeah. It's like Pac-Man, if you go all the way to the far right of the screen, you pop back up on the far left. If you go on the far left, you pop back up on the far right.
What a great analogy.
Right?
Yeah. What a great analogy. It does feel like that.
Wow.
So I have a theory as to what may be driving all of this. And really, if you really want to look at evidence for this, if you look at the Soviet Union and how they effectively manipulated their people, a lot of what they did is they would say one thing and they would counter it and then they would say something else, and constantly getting people to the point where they didn't know what was right or wrong, and they waited for their leaders to tell them what to think. And I feel like if they destabilize us enough to, this is true, then tomorrow this is not true. This word means that. No, tomorrow now it means that. Eventually we have no solid footing. We hate each other. We don't necessarily know why. We have no solid footing. Makes us very easily manipulated.